Today we have the privilege of having with us Mr. Wynn Bullock of Monterey. Wynn Bullock is one of the most experimental in the field of photography, in our present generation of photography, I should say. He has, in one sense, carried on the tradition of a friend of his, a very famous photographer, Edward Weston, and in another sense, which I think we'll demonstrate with the program today, has produced fields and directions all exclusively his own. Wynn Bullock generally is conceded to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 years ahead of everybody else in creative and experimental photography.
I really studied photography and made the decision in the early 40s, actually about 1938. And I went to Art Center School, and I decided to make it a life profession.
And today we have with us some of your photographs that we'll get on the screen here so that we can talk about them. Here's the first one.
Well, I might preface what I'm going to say about these photographs by saying that when I came to Monterey in the 1940s, I'd heard about Edward Weston and was tremendously impressed and still am one of his greatest admirers. But I soon discovered that no matter how much a man can teach you, you finally have to go off on your own.
Yes, indeed.
And so while I was in the first few years deeply under his influence, I found that I was simply making pictures that were little Edward Westons. And that didn't satisfy me. And so I simply went out and began looking and searching over the same area around Monterey, where most of my pictures have been taken, and wanted to discover more about what I was looking at. And I realized that I've been looking at things as objects, but then gradually I began to see that objects were simply spatial entities. And so space, to me, became a kind of a revelation. And as we looked at those first two pictures, these are pictures that I would say represent essentially the first dimension of space. They're more linear.
Very linear.
And when we're looking at objects, it's the dimensions, the spatial dimensions that define these objects. Now, as we look at this picture, we see that we not only have line, but we have more information about what I'm photographing. You have the texture. And so actually space in the second dimension gives you more information about what you're photographing, and in that sense differs from the first. I feel that this is the greatness of learning that space is a form of perception. Each one of us has this power. And once I recognized it, then I began to see things in my own way. And it does not apply to rules, it just applies to the power that's within each of us, and that's its importance. And it was through this that I was able to go on my own road. Now we'll go on to a different type of space. This picture is taken of plants in my backyard, and I took them as I would ordinarily take them, with a slight out of focus. But then the next picture shows a different kind of space in which the object comes out. Not only as an object, but I threw the camera out of focus after taking the picture and got the optical light off the plants on the same negative. So you have a kind of a light effect that I feel is quite effective and is a tool. And these are just samples of the type of things that can be done
By
with
utilizing
space
the space concept.
and thinking of space.
Well, this thing, of course, didn't come full-blown to you. You
Oh,
gradually
no.
evolved this.
Well, it was rather strange. I think it was developing in me for a long time, but I didn't become aware of it until the 1950s, when I went out, as I said, and began looking again. And then it did come almost at once. But the development of it, being a faculty, takes a long time, and it's never ending.
It's never,
That's its
your
power.
skill continues
Of
to
course.
develop if you'll stay with it.
That's the greatness of being able to realize, not my greatness, but anyone's potential greatness, that they're working with a tool that they can develop and develop and develop. Besides space, of course, there's the fourth dimension, time. Time, in other words, space and time coexist. So time to me is simply movement in space and the events that we experience. So this first picture that we're looking at is as the eye sees Cannery Row. This was a burnt down building, one of the canneries there. Now, this picture, it wasn't what I wanted at all. I wanted to add another dimension, in other words, not only a dimension of space, but a dimension of time. So
go ahead with that next one.
We take another picture
And
in
you're
the same
beginning,
position.
same position, the same scene.
Same scene. The only difference is that it's given more time. And
then,
so the waves that came in caused this kind of fog. Then the third picture was the final picture, taken at the same time, in which this kind of ephemeral, kind of mysterious effect that exists in nature and in time is more evident. And so it again, time is a form of perception and a tool itself.
And I want to thank you so much for coming by. We'll hope that all of the viewers will stay with us for the next program next week, and we'll talk to Wynn about some of his publications and also to Dave Bone about how you make a photographic book.
Thank you,
Thank you
Steve.
for being with us.
A pleasure.